Good Monday, everybody, and welcome to the jungle. Two Monday night football games to get through today, and a little bit of action in the NBA. Not much, a little bit light in the NBA the past week with the NBA Cup Finals tomorrow, Tuesday, and everyone's taking off on Wednesday, so there's not much to do on Wednesday in terms of sports betting. But there is some stuff that I like today, and let's get to it. We're starting with the association. First game we're looking at is the 76ers and the Hornets. Looks like LaMelo Ball is probably going to play today, and the bookmakers think so as well. Here's what we're looking at. We're looking at the Sixers minus 150 on the money line, Charlotte plus 132, Philly minus 3, spread Charlotte plus 3, over under at 216 and a half. Now, Joel Embiid is out. He's got that face fracture. That poor son of a bitch. You can't get it together. He's annoying. He deserves it. No one deserves that at all. I digress. But anyways, in terms of a play here, I like Charlotte in the money line. I like Charlotte in the money line plus 132. I also like the over here, over 216 and a half. Both teams don't play a lick of defense. Tyrese Maxey should get off today. If LaMelo Ball plays, this over looks really good. I think he's gonna. There hasn't been many props given to other Charlotte Hornets players, mainly because they're waiting on the news about LaMelo Ball. So I think that Ball plays. I think that he has a good game. I wouldn't take his props though because he might be on a minutes restriction. But let's talk about this. Tyrese Maxey maybe over 26 and a half points. I'm leaning that way. I kind of like that as well. But Hornets plus 132 on the money line. I like the over 216 and a half. I would go Tyrese Maxey perhaps over 26 and a half points. Moving on, we go. Heat and the Pistons. Very interesting since the Jimmy Butler rumors about where he might or might not go, be traded. Tyler Hero's been scoring more. He's been shooting more. His props line at 23 and a half. I like today. Now, the Pistons have been sneakily a better defense this year. They're top 10 in terms of points allowed. So I wouldn't pull the trigger as quickly as I did last year on that, but I do like Tyler Hero today over points. We got the Pistons plus 162 on the money line. I think is worth a sniff, just a snifferoo. Plus 4.5. If we're going to take 4.5, I would take them on the money line because the Pistons tend to either get blown out or hang in the game and end up winning when they're underdogs. So the over-under at 218 and a half, I would lean towards the under on that one there. We know the way the Miami Heat plays defense. They double team and trap the opponent's best player. That'll be Cade Cunningham today. So I look for Cade assists. If you want to play something, I would look for under Cade points. That's just how the Miami Heat play defense. You want to fade Cade's points. You want to back his over and assists. Now he's been over 9.5 assists in 8 of his last 11 games. He had an off day last game and assist, but it was a blowout. I don't think this game has the potential for blowout like the last one did. So I do like Cade Cunningham today of the Pistons over 9.5 assists. I like the Pistons on the money line, and I would go game total under 218 and a half. Looking at the Bulls and Raptors, man, poor Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is one of the brightest stars, up-and-coming stars in the association, and the dude just can't stay healthy. He just can't keep it together. But here we go. They're plus 110 against the Bulls, who gives up more points than anybody does, second most, to be exact. Toronto's plus 110, the money line. Plus 2.5 spread. If you like Toronto with the 2.5, I'd take him on the money line. No sense just with the 2.5. The average point differential in the NBA is between 5.5 and 6.5 points. So that I would go money line. If anything, if we're going to do something here, I got a prop play that I like. The over-under set at 240.5. That's a little bit excessive, but here's the thing. In the NBA, most high totals tend to go over because they think, it looks too high, and they tend to, kind of want you to go with the under. But the most high over totals tend to go over. But there's a prop that I love here. Now, RJ Barrett, we know, is going to chuck like crazy, and his line's a little bit too high for me. But Grady Dick, my man Grady Dick, he's not winning any beauty contests, but he shoots the ball a ton. When Scotty Barnes is not in the lineup, Grady Dick is over this line of 19.5 points. That's his line today in half of the games. He plays 35 minutes a game, and he's taking about 17 shots a game. Bulls give up, like I said, second most points in the association. I like Grady Dick today, over 19.5 points. Cavaliers and the Nets. Now we got the Nets plus 410 in the money line. We got the Cavs minus 480. No, you won't even mess with that. So Cleveland minus 10.5 is minus 105. Brooklyn plus 10.5 minus 110. Over under set at 215.5. I wouldn't mind going with the over here because there's the stigma that Cleveland's an under team, but this year they have a mainly an over team. I think that Cleveland looked at Boston's recipe for last year and they're trying to match it. They realize that defense is great, but it didn't work for them. It doesn't work for the New York Knicks. Knicks are doing the same thing Cleveland is. You notice that they're shooting more threes and they're scoring more. There's been a revolution with those two teams in the East trying to keep pace with the Celtics. They're playing a lot more Boston kind of ball, high scoring 3-point games. So I would go with the over 215.5 here in this game. Now, in terms of a prop, Evan Mobley sitting at over 14.5 points. He's a game time decision. I think he's going to play, but that's worth a look. Nick Claxton's a foul machine, and Ben Simmons probably isn't going to play. So I like Evan Mobley here. I also will look to fade Donovan Mitchell points. He tends not to score as much against these bad teams. He tends to dish more, but with the blowout potential, with Mitchell's line being so high and everything else, I wouldn't really back him in most of his props. But I do like Evan Mobley, and I like the over in this game, Cavs and the Nets. Nuggets and the Sacramento Kings. The Nuggets are interesting, man. There's, Joker's props are always so high, and he's having a quiet, really good statistical year once again, but he started off kind of slow, so people don't really realize that, don't really recognize that. But the props I like ordinarily with the Nuggets are Christian Brown over points is normally a home run. The books have moved that up a little bit recently. I also like Aaron Gordon over rebounds, and I like Michael Porter over points and sometimes over rebounds. Those are the plays I tend to go with the Nuggets. I'm more likely to fade Jamal Murray's points, but all this is based on EV, what the books are doing. What I like in this game, though, and there's Domantas Sabonis has been on fire lately. He's been scoring like crazy, and his line's been moved up a little bit, like 1 or 2 points in every book than they were to start the season, but rightfully so. He's getting more points. He's getting the same minutes he always does, but he's passing less and shooting more. All the teams are scoring more this season so far. Malik Monk got moved into the starting lineup earlier on in this season, and he's been on fire ever since that. His line's sitting at over 16.5 points. The books haven't adjusted yet, and I think that they should, as long as they continue to give us that Malik Monk play. Over 16.5 points. He's getting the shots. He's getting the minutes. We know he likes the 3-point ball. As long as everybody else is scoring, De'Aaron Fox doesn't really need to. DeMar DeRozan is pretty inconsistent. I like Malik Monk today a lot over 16.5 points. Last, we got the Jazz and the Clippers. James Harden is so hard to bet on. Norman Powell, I don't mind today with his over 20.5 points. One play I like a lot here, though, and he's been a little more consistent than he has last year. It's Colin Sexton of the Jazz over 14.5 points. I just think this is too low of a line for him. He's over this in 8 of his last 10. He's getting his 30 minutes a game. He's taking his 14 shots a game. He's going to shoot the 3-point ball. You know that. Clippers are very, very inconsistent. They play pretty good defense, giving up not a ton of points this year, but the Jazz are a funny team. I like Colin Sexton a lot today, over 14.5 points. We're also looking at the Jazz on the money line at plus 280, I think is worth a sniff. Over under sitting at 223.5. I wouldn't mind looking at the over. The Jazz don't really play much defense, but I think when they get hot, the Jazz can score, man. The Jazz can give it to you. So I like the Jazz worth a sniff on the money line at plus 280. I like Colin Sexton over 16.5 points. Any questions on the NBA, guys, before we move on to the gridiron? Did you guys have a good day betting yesterday? We did well in the jungle. We were up. We were 9-4, up 4.5 units. It was a good day. All right, we're moving on to the NFL 2 Monday Night Football games. Only half an hour apart. First one, so it's 8 o'clock and 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. First one's Bears and the Vikings. Bears are +7 for -110. Vikings are -7. Over under set at 43.5 points. I think this is a sneaky spot to take the under here. The Chicago Bears offense is terrible. Caleb Williams is going to get more offensive coordinators fired than anyone in his career. I'm pretty sure that more than Aaron Rodgers will this year. But Caleb Williams is just not the phenom that people thought he was going to be. I know it's early, but I just from the beginning I haven't seen it in this kid. I watched him a lot in college. Just doesn't have the smarts and the fortitude to get it done, baby. So I like the under. I think the under is a sneaky play here at 43.5. I also think it's worth laying it here with Minnesota with -7. Now there are some 6.5s floating around out there. 7, 6.5. I would go up to 7. I wouldn't go 7.5. I'll take the touchdown. But it's interesting. Last time they played, it was a close game. The Vikings had the game in hand. They were up 10 very late in the fourth quarter. Chicago scored, got the onside kick, made it kind of interesting, but they were really ahead and dominating the whole entire game. They really doubled, sometimes triple teamed Justin Jefferson. It seemed like he only had like 20 yards in the first game. I think he might get loose a little bit in this game here. I like Jordan Addison over yards, but he's been juiced to the max recently with all his success. DeAndre Swift under rushing attempts might be worth a look. He's still coming off an injury, and the Bears should be playing from behind this entire game. Aaron Jones over rushing yards might be worth a look as well. But I don't like a ton in this game, to be honest with you, man, with the Vikings and the Bears. Like I said, I would go under the 43.5. I know it's a low total, but the Bears have done enough defensively this year to make me think that it is worth a shot of going under the total here, because I don't think the Bears are going to score on the Vikings. The Bears had 2 yards of total offense in the first quarter. Has Chicago given up against the 49ers? Looked uninterested on all sides. Being a divisional game. Yeah, Nate, good question, man. So has Chicago given up? I don't know. I don't think they've given up. Divisional games are always tough. That's always a risk. But I just think that the talent in this game, I think Chicago's just a disaster, man. The one thing they can do is run the ball a little bit with DeAndre Swift. The Vikings play good defense. Brian Flores is going to throw everything he can at Caleb Williams, confuse the heck out of him. And the Vikings are one of the best teams against the rush in the NFL. So I think that Chicago's going to have a hard time throwing the ball. Running the ball. They're going to make them pass the ball. And they're just not going to be able to do that against the Vikings. Like I said, the Bears defense has been good enough to make me want the under 43.5, but that's really the only play that I would take here. I gave you a couple leans and props, but in terms of what I really like, I would just go with the under 43.5, and I'd be tempted to lay this up with the Vikings, although I didn't put that in myself. Moving on to the next game, there is something that I like here. Couple things that I like here. Actually, it's the Raiders and the Falcons. The Raiders come in losing 9 straight. The Falcons come in losing 4 straight. Something has to give. Those have been honorable losses, as I've said, by Atlanta. They've lost to good teams, Denver, the Chargers. So they've had some pretty, formidable opponents in the last few weeks. So those losses I can justify. Now, in the Vikings, Kirk Cousins has not been that good. I think he's got in his last 4 games, 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, something crazy like that. But this is a get-right spot for the Falcons. The Raiders allow the second most points in the NFL behind only the lowly Carolina Panthers. The Falcons have been good against inferior teams. They're 4-3 against the spread in games that they're favored. Bijan Robinson is one of the best running backs in the league. The Raiders are mediocre against the run, mediocre against the pass, but teams do tend to score a lot on them. It's a Desmond Ridder revenge game today. I don't think that's going to do much. He said that God works in mysterious ways, but I don't think the Lord above or any kind of miracle can help him propel his 15 touchdowns to 12 career interceptions. That's a terrible ratio against the Falcons team that still has a lot to play for. The Falcons are only 1 game behind the Buccaneers in the NFC South. They could still win the division. They have the tiebreaker on Tampa Bay. They've already beaten them twice. I like the Falcons today, -5.5, big time. Other play I like here is Darnell Mooney, over 48.5 for receiving yards. He's top 35 in receptions, top 35 in targets, top 35 in yards. Quietly, he's on his way to a 1,000-yard season. He'll probably get that in the next 2 games. He's over this in 4 of his last 6 games. The Falcons have one of the best passing offenses in the league, 3rd best in terms of yardage for passing. I like Darnell Mooney today over 48.5 receiving yards. That's all I got for you today, Jungle Nation. Do you have any questions for me? Any comments before I head out and get ready for our TikTok show at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time? Anything you want to add in, feel free. Be my guest. Be my guest and let them do the rest. Cool. All right, gang. Thank you for the support. As always, we're growing the nation. Subscribers are popping up more every single day. Have a great day. Maybe I'll see you over on TikTok at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We can spend a little more time together. And I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to break down in detail the NBA Cup championship game between the Bucks and the Thunder. There's a side I like very much. I'll see you over there.